Beatenbaugh. Oh, recording in progress. My name is Sarah Beatenbaugh, and I'm here to talk today about fostering medical self-awareness and learning about medications. Before I start sharing all of this information, I think you might want to know who I am. So again, my name is Sarah. I live in Columbia, South Carolina. I'm a waiver case manager with Bright Start. So essentially, I work with individuals and families of connecting them to services through DDSN waivers, and also just to resources in the community and help them navigate life. And I am a LEND trainee with MUSC for the 2022-2023 academic year. LEND is an acronym for a long name. It stands for Leadership in Education and Neurodevelopmental and Related Disabilities. So I have been learning a lot this past year, and part of what I've been learning is in this presentation. So I went to the University of South Carolina, so I am a Gamecock. And I had to include a picture here of my cat that I got in December. Wasn't planning on getting a cat, but she came to me and I named her Betty because she's white, and she's the light of my life. So just had to include a picture of Betty in there. So we will get started. But before we get started, I want you guys to know, feel free, you can unmute and ask questions if you'd like to, or you can just chat. I will ask some questions. If you don't want to answer, you don't have to. I am comfortable with silence. But how many parents do we have on the call? I think I see one, maybe. I think I see one parent. And then do we have any self-advocates? So anybody's with disabilities on this call themselves? I don't think I see any. So this will be great, because then I will be, if you have any advice throughout the presentation, please let me know. So I don't have a disability, and so I recognize the fact that I am not the actual expert as being someone with that experience. So if you're a parent and you have that experience and you have advice, please feel free to interject. And I want to take a note that this presentation is aimed to cover all ages. Some points might be geared more towards self-advocates, some might be geared more towards kids, and then some might be towards parents. And I do recognize that within the world of disabilities, we have a wide range. Everybody is different and there's a wide range of abilities. So I just want us to keep that in mind throughout this presentation. View it through the lens of your child's disability or your disability, and recognize that it's going to look different for everybody. So we will get started. So the biggest question first is, this presentation's on self-advocacy. So what does that mean? There's a variety of things that self-advocacy can mean, but if you boil it down to a few points, it is communicating our needs to access needed services and accommodations, being able to achieve equal opportunities, having our voice heard, and then empowering ourselves to achieve success. And so these are things that we want for individuals to advocate for themselves, right? We want equal opportunities. We want voices to be heard. And we'll get into how we can practice that and what that looks like, but these are the main definitions of self-advocacy. To take it even a little bit further, there's three main parts of self-advocacy. It's the ability to understand our strengths and weaknesses. What are we good at? What are we not good at? For me, I'll give an example. I am really great at baking and crocheting. So if you want me to enter in something to the South Carolina State Fair, I will. I've won a blue ribbon. But if you want me to fix your computer, you don't want that to happen, because I am not IT geared at all. That's just not how my brain works. So understanding what we're good and what we're not good at, And then knowing what we want or need to be more successful is super important. So making those goals, seeing, hey, where are we at now? Where do we want to go? And then being able to let other people know about our needs and decisions. So making those determinations of where we want to go or what we need, and vocalizing that and asking for help if needed. So these are all great, but how do we get to being a self-advocate? It doesn't come overnight. And it's something that we learn all throughout life. But in order to be a self-advocate, we have to be self-aware. You can't advocate for yourself unless you don't know about yourself. So does anybody want to define what being self-aware means? And Sally, you can jump in too if you'd like. It's okay. I have a definition right here. Being self-aware is your ability to understand things that make you who you are as an individual. And there are a lot of things that encompass this. So right here, I have a picture. I'm going to call her Susie. She's looking in the mirror. If we're just looking at her physical appearance, we're seeing she's wearing pink shoes, a purple polka dot dress. She has brown hair in a braid with a yellow bow. But that's just the outside, right? And I think that's a lot of times with the world of disabilities, a lot of people will just see the outside, but there's so much more to what makes up ourselves. And so examples of that are our values. What do we value in life? Our personality. Are we shy? Are we outgoing? Skills. Like I said, I'm good at baking. Someone might be really good. I know I have worked with plenty of kids who are really good at putting together elaborate Lego sets. Like they're spatial, they can put anything together whatsoever. Knowledge and interests, culture, race, and background is a big part of who we are. But today specifically, we're going to be talking about like medical backgrounds and what does that look like. So we're going to move forward. So we talked about what self-advocacy is, right? But in order to advocate for ourselves medically, before we can do that, we have to be self-aware of ourselves, medically. So teaching and learning self-awareness now will help self-advocacy with professionals later. So for our parents on the call, these are things that no matter the age, there are different things you can do at each age or at each developmental stage that can build upon it and as you go on. So then when they reach adulthood or even when they're teens, they are able to advocate for themselves to the best of their ability. And then this will also lead to more effective communication with providers and professionals that provide care. So all really good things encompassing, but in order to advocate, we have to be self-aware. So moving forward, what does being self-aware medically mean? I have some examples here, but it's knowing our medical needs and acknowledging the challenges. So I am going to use the example that I don't have diabetes, but for the purpose of this presentation, we're going to pretend. So if that is a challenge that I face, then these are the things that I need to acknowledge. Like I have diabetes, so I need to watch how much sugar I eat. My blood sugar needs to be checked regularly, so I have my blood sugar checked multiple times daily. I need to have snacks on hand at all times in case my blood sugar gets too low. For some of the individuals that I work with that are in the autism spectrum, it might be sensory is different for everybody, but I definitely have some individuals I work with of, hey, when I am in my classroom and I get to a point where I am getting very overwhelmed, there's a lot going around, I need to take a break and go to the guidance counselor's office to kind of take a breather. So these are knowing these things that, might be challenges and acknowledging them. But then that goes into knowing our strengths and challenges. So example of that was like, I am good at knowing what medications I take, but remembering to take them daily is difficult. That's an actual reality for me. I know what they are, but do I forget to take them? Yes. And then making goals as we look for the big picture. So going back to the example, as if I had diabetes, it would be, I would like to become independent in checking my blood sugar by myself. I would like to gain more practice in keeping track of what I eat. And then this is a big one. I would like to know the names of all my doctors and why I go to them. Like if Billy goes to the endocrinologist to see his doctor, it's great to tell him like, hey, that's a big word for a kidney doctor. We're going there for your diabetes, and putting diabetes into words that Billy can understand. And then we'll talk about this later, but becoming independent and taking medications is a really great way of being self-aware and advocating for yourself personally. So I've said this again, but I want to reiterate it. But recognizing our abilities and being medically self-aware builds self-esteem over time. And then that builds into self-advocacy as we get older. I think one of the greatest examples of that is Judith Heumann. She actually passed recently, but she grew up with polio in New York City, and she advocated for herself medically and also for the ADA. And she had such great self-esteem because she knew who she was, she knew what she needed, and she advocated for herself. But that definitely was a part of being self-esteem and being confident in herself. So we'll move forward. So we've talked about what being medically self-aware means. So how can we practice that? This next section is geared more towards parents. So the biggest thing is to encourage open conversations. Bodily autonomy is very important, and kids often have a lot of questions, right? Especially if they're going to the doctor a lot, or if they see that, hey, I go to school and I'm different from my peers. Why is that? They might ask questions. And so it's really great to have those conversations and have them be open, and opening up that space to where they can feel comfortable to ask questions. And that's not only asking parents or their caregivers, but also when they go to the doctor, like maybe involving them in conversations and saying, hey, Trent, do you have any questions for the doctor as well? And so we also want to encourage them to speak freely and openly about the challenges they face daily. I think it's very easy for us to kind of assume the challenges, but I think we would all be surprised to find out of certain challenges that we didn't even have on our radar. And then for self-advocates, if we have any on the call, I don't want you to be afraid to ask questions about your health and disability. Ask your parents, ask your caregivers, family members, doctors. Just make sure you ask trusted sources, because not everything you read on the internet is true. My little nugget. I talked about this earlier, but we want to involve, this is more towards parents, but involving children and teens in their medical appointments. So like I said earlier, if Billy were to go to the endocrinologist, it's to let him know, hey, we're going to the kidney doctor. This is the name. This is his name. His name is Dr. Jones. And this is what we're going to talk about. And maybe prepare them for the appointment. In the appointment, let them be involved. And then afterwards, follow up with them. Because I know a lot of times doctors at the end will be talking about next steps. I get confused as an adult of next steps from the doctor. So it's very likely that your child will also be a little confused. So let them ask questions, and then get to know your doctors. They're there to take care of you, and they're there to answer your questions. So that's a big part, is just making sure that they have that freedom to ask questions and know what's going on with their body. So moving forward, so we know what being medically self-aware means and what it looks like to advocate for ourselves medically, but there's things that we can do to help practice it. The biggest thing is fostering independence in medical care. That's going to look different for everybody. But one main thing you can do is helping practice knowing and taking medications and helping practice different medical tasks. For some, and in a second, I'll show kind of a different timeline or different progression of how to learn. But it can be simple as knowing and taking medications, of them knowing, hey, I take this medication for this reason, or like practice different medical tasks. That could be as simple as them putting the Band-Aid on themselves and fostering that independence. So Family Connection has a really great resource on their website that I have actually now started referring my families to. It's called the Your Child's Journey Workbook. And you can see it's about 20 pages of really great things regarding medical care. So you can have a section for health history, allergies, medications, immunization records, all sorts of different things. And we can maybe send an email out after, Sally, maybe with a link to that. Some helpful tips. My biggest tip, this is just me, I'm super organized in type A. I have like a accordion folder for everything in my life, but creating a binder where you can keep all this information, and then make sure you update it as you go on. So each time you go to the doctor, or I know a lot of things are electronic nowadays, but you might want to print off doctor's notes, put them in the binder and review it with your child, and then make sure you keep it in a safe and secure place where others wouldn't have access to it. And then we will continue on. So we are getting there. Medications and how to take them. That's a part of medical self-advocacy and medical self-awareness. There's a variety of different things about medications, but learning about them helps us understand our medical conditions. It enhances our self-confidence, and it makes us safer in knowing how to take them. That's a big thing, is we want to make sure that no matter what in the realm and in the activity of taking medication, the biggest priority is making sure that it's taken safely and appropriately. So there are a variety of ways to get to that place or to that point. Social stories are a really great tool that families have, and therapists, school teachers have used for a variety of things, but it can be used in the realm of teaching someone how to take medication. So I have two examples. We'll start with the top one. So the middle row is an example for individuals who can read and have the capacity to read. So in one column we have medication, and it's like, how does this help me? Guanfacine helps me to focus and stay calm. A picture of what that pill looks like, and then when do I take this? I take one pill before bed. And how do I take it? I take it with water. So that's one way, but then it's also, you can do pictures with it as well. And it could be a daily activity if you print this off and you have it laminated, and each time you go through the medication process, you're reviewing it, of like, hey, why do we take this? Kind of like a daily quiz. And that way they're aware of what they take, how they take it, and it just builds up that confidence to one day they can hopefully do it on their own. I say this, I don't have kids, but I have seen friends experience this and worked with families who've experienced this, where administering medication can be difficult. So no matter the age, we want individuals to understand the importance of taking their medication. And when administering it, it's important to make it clear of like what you're doing and why you're asking that of them. So we're talking about it, but as your child ages, give them more responsibility as time goes on. And with oversight, they will get ready to take those medications on their own. And here's a sample progression of over time, what that can look like. It could start with having the child put the pill, or if it's compounded or put in liquid form, syringe in their mouth on their own. And then we can practice getting the correct medication out of the correct bottles, asking them, hey, Susie, why do you take this medication? And educating them and having them repeat it back to you. It would be nice. I have a slide soon about a sample chart, but a chart you guys can use to check off what medications are taken. And then introducing weekly pill boxes on Sundays is what a lot of my families have done. And on Sundays, sitting down and pre-portioning them into it. But then we also, if they start to do that on their own, it's important to make sure we teach the executive functioning task of like, okay, I'm going to put these pills from my pill bottle in here. What do I do if I start to get low on supply? So making sure we teach them as well, hey, if it gets low, we need to get it refilled. This is how we get it refilled. And then as it moves forward, they can maybe call the pharmacy on their own and get it refilled. So natural progression, but these are things to think about. For self-advocates, think about where you are at on this list and work towards reaching the next goal. So it's okay if you are at number 1, no matter your age. If you're at number 1, that's awesome. And just make a goal, talk with your family, your friends about how you want to move forward and see of ways that they can support you in that. You're getting there. I'm going to put on my case manager hat and share some ways in which I have seen different families store medications for a week. I mentioned it earlier, but like the weekly pill box that has an AM slot and a PM slot. But there are other tools out there. This actually is a medication dispenser that was made for adults with dementia and Alzheimer's. But it can be used in a way, pills are pre-portioned and then you set a timer, and when the timer goes off, it will not turn off until that dispenser is turned upside down and pills come out. And so that's a cool way. I have an individual who lives on his own in an apartment, and they realized he was getting pretty forgetful, but once they were able to introduce this tool that we found on a website for geriatric patients, they use it for him and it works super great. And it's actually helped him recognize, okay, alarm, medication time. So then that way his parents feel confident that he's taking his medication on his own. So I talked about a resource that we have. It's in that Your Child's Journey workbook that I mentioned earlier. And part of it is a medication log. It's hard to see it right here, but in these different columns, it's the date, medication, what it's taken for, dosage, time, who it's prescribed by, and then also side effects. So that's something I didn't mention earlier, but a lot of medications have side effects, and it's important for us to know what's possible, and then also to just let our individuals know. Like, I know, for example, guanfacine can make people drowsy. So that's a lot of times why it's taken before bed. So it's important to know that. Does anybody have any questions or advice that they would like to share at all? Anything?
I'll just say, Sarah, from working with other families and other parents, one thing that we kind of joked about with is actually one of our staff members here. She had always helped her son like get ready and putting the pills in the pill box, or like, refilling the pill box for him. And then when it's time for him to go off to college, all of a sudden he was like, well, what happens when the pills are gone? Because she had been the one to refill it. And like, he had never thought about like, well, how do they get there on
Mhm.
Sunday? Like you said, Sarah, like, how do they get from the bottle to the box? And so she thought she was helping him by keeping him on track with a pill box,
Yeah.
but he didn't know how to refill the pill box. So I love that you talked about that, because that's such a real world, like just one of those easy things you don't think about as a mom. We just kind of do it. And then you're like, oh, maybe I should teach them how to do that too, because one
Yeah.
day I won't be here to do it for them. So
Right.
just
But
throw that in.
yes, because I have one family who they were really in that routine, and then the individual lives with his parents still, right? And all of a sudden mom was like, I'm gonna call him David. David, where are the pills in your pill box? And he's like, oh, well, they're gone. And so they actually had to go a few days without medication while they got it refilled. And then that was like, mom was like, okay, we got to figure out, okay, when you get to this amount, here's what we need to do. So, do we have any other advice or questions that people have?
I actually, I guess it's advice and a question. I would
Okay.
like to know where you found the pill box with the time. Okay, so if there's a link to that, that would be great. My son has gotten better because we keep his in one specific place in the house. But as far as time, he has like oh, I have it, it's away from me, but he has this checklist
Okay.
that I found on Amazon, and it has like a round button, and you slide it back and forth. So when you slide it like to the left, it reveals the check mark, but to the
Okay.
right, it reveals the X. So you check it as you go. But then sometimes he checks before he takes the pill,
Mhm.
and so the medicine is not taken, and and so I would like to know where to find that, because I think that would be helpful. And then
Yeah.
the other thing that I was thinking about that I had not thought about until last summer, he went to camp,
Mhm.
and I was not aware that they would be required to have their medicines in the
Actual
specific
bottle.
container. Yes, it
Yeah.
has to be in the bottle or the box with the descriptions on there. So I would say, like, for parents to definitely, if you're taking them out, to try to keep them in one central location just for them, so that if they do leave home and they're required to have it, or even at school, his EpiPen, he gets to carry it now, but he has to have a box. So
Yeah.
I guess, just to show his name and everything. So I would advise that they keep it in one central location so that they can just pick it up whenever that time comes as well.
That's a great point. I actually used to work at a camp, and so we would encourage parents to send their kids with the actual pill bottles. But sometimes we would come and kids would come to the nurse's office and they would have a plastic baggie just full of random pills. And the nurse is like, I don't know what these are for. Like, I don't know what they're for. I don't know when you get them. I don't know the dosage. And so that's a very valid point of when they go to camp. And that could be just like a plastic Rubbermaid bin and then have the original labels on it. And then the parents could even print out instructions that you could laminate and even put on like the bottom of the lid as well. I think that's like a good idea. But to answer your question, well, first of all, I want to acknowledge I really like the idea of the check mark, right? I think that's a great way to check it. But then, of course, it could be a thing where they check it off before taking the medication. I can see that being an issue. So the medication dispenser, there are so many different types online. But and I can get Sally a link and we can send it to you directly. But if you even just Google like medication dispenser and then dementia or Alzheimer's, it'll come up. There's websites dedicated to it, and you will have a variety of different options to choose from to see what works best for you and your family. But it is super nice to have that be a timer and it goes off and it will not, well, the one that the individual I've worked with used, it would not go off until they showed me he physically turned it upside down, put the pills in his hand. So do you have any
Yeah,
other questions?
I don't. I was just thinking how it actually reminds me of his cell phone. He sets the alarm in the mornings, but
Mhm.
we don't. It goes by his door, so the alarm. And I have not showed him how to snooze. And I know that's might be bad, but so it goes off until he gets up. So that pill box kind of reminded me of that. Like he'll definitely have to physically take, turn it up and take it.
Yeah. So, well, I'm glad that I had that experience because I remember being, and also, I mean, there's a lot of things, if you look at those websites too, that I've also been able to refer to other family members or to other families that aren't pillboxes. There are a variety of different tools that can be used in a variety of different ways. This was made for older adults with dementia and Alzheimer's, but it works really well for young adults with who will forget. So I'm glad that worked. So it sounds like you guys have a really great system of the checkbox and everything, and it's of course, following around behind too to ensure. So we do have some challenges. So for parents on the call, I would encourage you guys to sit down with your child, teen, whatever age they may be, and make a list of the medications that they take. You might want to ask them, like, do they know why it's administered? Do they know why they take it? And have a clear conversation of what it is they're taking and what it's for. I would also encourage you guys to use that workbook through Family Connections website. Look through the different sections they have regarding the medical portion and seeing, hey, we're really good at knowing these items, but you know what, we should really get a list of these items like doctors. So they're all in one place. And then for our teens and self-advocates, encourage you guys to make a list and chart. And then think to yourself, do I know why I'm taking this? Do I know what it's for? And then making a plan, either by yourself or with your caregiver or parent to see how you can move towards independence in that. So the last thing is Family Connections. So you can connect with them. They are super great. And Sally, do you have anything to add to that?
I just was only going to add one other, thought that I had that is, I think, hard for us as parents to, I say it all the time, but it's hard for me to do as a mom too, is if your child asks you a question in these really cool conversations that you're opening the door for, and they ask you a question that you're really not sure the answer of, like exactly what does this medicine do? What does my kidney do? It's okay to say you don't know. And what that does is it actually, A, shows them you don't have to know it all. And B, it helps you then have that conversation with them of how to remember to ask that question next time you go to the doctor. And saying like, hey, that's a really great question. I'm not sure the answer, but that's a great question that we can ask your doctor the next time that we go to your appointment. So how about let's write that down in our notebook and take that with us to the next appointment and have that conversation. And sometimes that gives a little bit more validity to it. Not that moms, we're always right, guys, but sometimes they like to hear it from somebody that's not their mom. So
Yeah.
that's from my past life. I worked in healthcare with children for over a decade, and that's one of those things that I always talked about a lot was it's okay to not know the answer, but to be honest in that you don't know it, and let's figure it out together and figure out how do we find that answer together. So, but no, other than that, thanks, Sarah, for this. Are there any other questions? I know there were a couple of comments in the chat that were, people are loving the pillbox, and I see that Jennifer found a link to it. So there's a link to one of those pillboxes in the chat. So check that out. The one Jennifer put in, she said it actually, you can add a pre-recorded message as well. That's awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I didn't know that. That's awesome.
So there's definitely, lots of great resources out there. I think you just have to get creative. And like Sarah said, she found that one that is actually, marketed towards individuals, with dementia, and a geriatric, but we can, all use different things no matter who it's actually intended for.
Yeah.
And then Hannah put in a link, you guys, in the chat as well for the journey workbook. from Family Connection. We can mail that to you directly as a hard copy version. This is what it looks like. I love it. It's my resource. It's always in my office. But we can mail that to you directly as a hard copy, but there's also an option to download it as a PDF version if you wanted to do that as well when you go to the website. And it says that you have to order it. It is at no cost. We just need you to order it so you can put your mailing address in there so we can get it to you. So that'll be there. And then if you have any other questions or concerns, and maybe this made you think of things, or you go back and you try them out and you want to reach back out to us, our information's here on the slide that Sarah has up, but also you can make a referral on our website anytime, and one of our staff members will give you a call directly to help answer questions and kind of walk through the process. Or if you have questions specifically for Sarah, we'll get you in contact.
Yeah, awesome. I do have one point that I want to say, because I'm reading the chat and there's a mom that says, my teenage son tends to ignore the cell phone reminders and he hates my voice, ... And so I'm thinking, if you get the medication dispenser that you can record the voice, have him record his own voice and give himself a reminder. And, he can make it funny too. Like, be quirky, be yell at yourself, hey, dude, take your medication, and then that makes it like fun for them. And that way he's involved, and probably feels really cool that he hears his own voice telling him to take his medication. So that's just an idea that I had. So
I love that idea.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much, everybody, for joining. This was really great. I enjoyed it. And thanks so much.